No, you are not responsible for them walking away from you. And neither are you responsible for their emotional reaction if you walk away from them. This video I want to talk about today is regarding what happens when people realize that you are unreplaceable and you're not replaceable. The truth is that nobody really is replaceable. Nobody really is replaceable in the sense that every single person in my experience that I've come across has been an absolutely unique individual. But that does not mean that each person I come into contact with is, has a soul, or is following self-improvement, or is on the journey of self-discovery and one with the spirit of the times. So what happens when people realize that you're not replaceable? Maybe you've been sacrificing a lot of time in your relationship for this person. Maybe you're just starting to feel exhausted in the relationship. Maybe you are looking for something that is a little bit more strong and a little bit more spiritually based, or maybe you're looking for something that isn't quite as superficial. You're just getting to the point to where you're realizing that this relationship isn't for you. Now, if you are not in any way, shape, or form holding yourself to any kind of standard, there are likely two things that are going to happen. Number one is you are going to keep being involved in a relationship or a situationship with this person, and it's going to continue to kill your soul. Or number two, I guess there might be three things. Number two is you continue to evolve in the relationship, and yet you kind of distance yourself from this person, and you start to realize over time that things are just changing, and you're starting to see that you need to make a change, but you're scared to do it because that means that you might have a little bit less friendships, or a little bit less affection, or a little bit less intimate relationships, any kind of that, anything like that. And number three is, you just have self-respect, and you actually know that you need to leave the relationship. So I guess there's two situations if you don't have a lot of self-respect or standards set for yourself, and then there's the one where you just know that it's not right for you. The most difficult thing that I've seen for a lot of different kinds of people, whether they're male or female, is if they've been in some kind of intimate relationship with someone else, and they know this person is not good for them. They know they can't provide what they need. You know you can't get what you need from this person. And you know that no matter how much you give, you're not going to be able to have that reciprocation. It's just not going to happen. So what is the dynamic here when this happens? Usually the man idealizes the relationship in some form, whether it's through a necessary means, whether it's a necessary means of affection or of money or of something else. And then for the woman, it's usually a means for resources. She's going to be losing out on some kind of security or resources available to her if she doesn't stay in this relationship. Now, there are times when narcissistic individuals will coerce you or use money to influence you, or toxic individuals will try to ensure that you have to be dependent on them in such a way that negates your availability to prosperity and freedom. Now, I don't think it's wrong necessarily to be dependent on certain people. You know, when we have a job, we have to be dependent on the company, number one. And number two, we have to be dependent on the people around us to make sure that they're doing their job and that we're a team, that we're going to get the things done that we need to get done. And then number three, I was going to say number four. Number three, I can count, I promise. Number three is you have to make sure that you're able to commit to be dependent on these people. Because if you don't want to commit to be dependent on these people, the relationship's not going to work from the get-go. So that's not to say that you can't be independent in these relationships. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that you are not worthy of being independent or having your own resources available to you, or resources gathered or created by yourself. What I'm saying is that there are going to be times when we need people. That's just the way it is. And we are a social species, you know. We do need each other to some degree. And when people realize that you're not the person that they can depend on in certain ways with other people, that's where the magic happens. That's where we get into the bread and butter of this discussion today. So, when they realize that you are not replaceable, because likely if you are dealing with a narcissistic person or a toxic individual, they're already trying to line other people up to get some kind of attention resource for them already before your relationship ends. Because, I don't like to say that these toxic people or narcissistic people are smart in such a way that they are like spiritually smart, but they are very good at manipulation tactics and manipulating emotions and manipulating situations to most benefit themselves. It's such a shame in some ways that society often rewards the takers and punishes the givers, because the key ingredient to life is giving. If you know how to give, and if you know what you have to give, you're winning. Like, there's nothing else to get in this life but to give, and to know how and what you can give, and to really express yourself honestly and authentically. Like Bruce Lee said in an interview a long time ago, a few decades ago, to do that is very, very difficult. To honestly express yourself through action is very challenging. And so when you are able to authentically express yourself, especially in today's world, you are a dime a dozen. You are someone that is not very common. Now, I'm not saying that you should think of yourself as so high and mighty, but you definitely have a degree of creativity, cognitive ability, and a lack thereof of neurotic behavior, I should say. And that lack of neurotic behavior is uncommon in today's world. Most people are neurotic to some degree, and some are more neurotic than others. But if you look closely at the world, the people that are the most neurotic are often the most depressed or anxious or often unhappy with their lives, and yet they don't make anything to change their situation. They don't make those steps toward their goals. They don't know how to give to themselves. And that's really what understanding what it means to be irreplaceable. Now, we are all disposable in one way or another. Like, I don't have, like, there are many other YouTubers that you could be watching right now. There are many other content creators that you could be watching right now. But you're watching this channel. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate the support. But you are watching this channel. And there are tons and tons and tons of other channels to watch. Like, there's no shortage of YouTubers nowadays, right? But the ones that succeed, in my estimation, don't necessarily have the largest following, but the most loyal following in regards to how they are able to, how the YouTuber is able to articulate to the audience. And that requires some kind of emotional and spiritual relationship to the audience, which I have tried very much to cultivate that, even though it can be difficult, because I want to make sure that you are being heard, that you are here with me. Like, we are living this common life, and I don't want to take you for granted. I'm not trying to screw anybody over. What I have to say is based off of real life experience and a desire to really help people see into their own hearts and into their own souls, to awaken themselves. Now, they say the truth can set you free, but sometimes first it'll piss you off. And, you know, that's happened multiple times on this channel where I've had maybe like a month or two ago, I had a comment on one of my videos from a while back, people not liking what I was saying. And then now, like a week later, or a week or so ago, they're like, "Oh, you know what? I'm starting to see your point now." And it's like, well, that'll happen. That'll happen. I get it. Like, I don't take it personally. I don't take attacks on my ideas personally, because they're my ideas and they're the ideas. You know, I'm not my ideas. And ideas don't have me at this point in time. They used to have me. I used to be a proponent of ideas themselves. I would exist in the ideology, but I didn't know I was part of the ideology until I stepped out of that ideology and sought for the real objective truth based off of factual, rational, empirical, data-driven examples in reality. So essentially, what I hope that you realize is that it's okay to walk away or to not walk away. And sometimes, you know, people will come back into your life, and that'll happen. You know, that can happen. And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse. Sometimes you needed that space apart to figure your stuff out. And other times, well, it wasn't necessarily the best idea to separate in the first place, and now it actually hindered your relationship in general. The point that I'm really making here is that it's not really about, like, life really isn't about anything, but it starts with you. And that's where the meaning comes from. So the meaning comes from what starts with you, but it ends with how you're able to share it in a meaningful way. So don't be afraid to walk away from a situation if people don't see the value that you're bringing. And be mindful of people that are going to say that they appreciate you into your face, and then behind your back, they are talking shit. You know, that you have to learn who your friends really are. And I learned who my friends really were over the past 2 or 3 years since the pandemic, and who I agreed with, who I disagreed with on certain things, and how I was going to live my life based off of those analyzations of reality and the situation at hand, given my information that I was provided and that I sought out. And so I was going to live my life a certain way, and some people weren't going to take that lightly. Some people didn't like that. Others had respect for it. Others didn't really give a crap. So, it depends on the person. But you have to be willing to walk away from any kind of situation, I think, at any given time. You have to be willing to walk away. Specifically as a man, I don't know. I don't think the same thing can apply for women, generally speaking. But for men, you have to be willing to walk away, because that's, and this concept of being detached emotionally, but still enjoying the presence or the people that you are in your relationships with, that's a very good trait to have, right? Because it keeps you, like, there was a sage that once said the trick to life is to love everyone and still not care what people think. That's the real test of enlightenment, really, to some degree. So, well, the real test of enlightenment really doesn't consist of any test per se, but the test is there's no test. And that's what it means to understand the relationships in your life and to not care what people think, but still love them. You can love everybody on this planet. I have love for everybody on this planet, but I'm not in love with anybody. I have love for everybody. How that love is expressed is a completely different story, because I can love somebody, but I don't necessarily have to respect them, right? I can care for somebody, but I don't have to always be present in order for me to care. Sometimes the biggest example to set for caring is to step away. So it really depends. But this is what happens when people realize that you cannot be replaced. There's going to be hovering, for example, when they're going to try to come back, and don't always take them back. It really depends on your situation. But you have to be mindful and you have to be cognizant of everything going on, and have the fortitude of mind and the discipline of mind to know whether or not you want them in your circle or not. So I hope this video was insightful and informative. Until next time, peace be with you.